Today's video is going to be a little different. The problem is going to focus on anybody out there who's hiring for an AI transformation product manager or is trying to figure out ways to become more efficient with their business or themselves through AI. I'm going to give you some tips, tricks, and just some general knowledge so that you can really vet the talent that you see and be able to understand what makes a good AI PM versus a bad one. But when it comes to the actual interview process, it's very similar to the ones you've always run and have been through if you're going through the process. The product sense, execution, analytical and technical fluency interviews, everybody's pretty familiar with these. Where we're not familiar is the AI. A lot of people hiring for this or looking for one-off projects don't necessarily know all the details, all the technical needs, and the people out there looking for jobs aren't necessarily experts because no one's a true expert on everything because it's just brand new. We're on the bleeding edge of technology and trying to empower people. Some people still think it's coming to get their jobs, and it's our job as AI PMs to make sure that customers and internal stakeholders embrace the technology and see how it gives them superpowers rather than as a threat to them. So, some questions that we recommend asking are: explain what an LLM is to a non-technical executive. You would hope that they don't have a whole bunch of jargon and are trying to talk down to people. They can actually break things down to a level where they can analogize it to something in their world. And so that's what you'll be looking for. When should you fine-tune versus build a new one? What are the risks in regulated spaces? When I was working in banking, there were regulations from the feds, obviously, and that's what RSAS did. But there are also regulations from the individual banks. I worked with multiple banks, and each one had a different set of rules, different set of links, different set of things it could use. And I'm sure that AI is going to have the same restrictions, things like that. And then how do you measure that success? So the question, explain what a large language model is. They should be able to highlight their capabilities. They should always tie things back to business value. That's what you want an AI PM to do. Business outcomes is the goal, and tying it to value to the customers. I like to have 5 customer interviews every week for the team to sit in on so that we can hear from them what they want, what they like, what they're doing now, and see if we can make it any better to hopefully make it easier on them to embrace our change. So when do you fine-tune versus build a new model? You want to define the approach. You want to hear that they have an approach and a framework for doing this. Now, it can be a gray area because fine-tuning is usually pretty good. Even what we'll talk about in a little bit, RAG is awesome at getting those details out. But sometimes, like say a hospital needs to keep all their patient information in-house on their own servers, I could see them needing to spin up an LLM for that because they can't use stuff that is in the public because of privacy law. So there are things to think about, but you need to listen for those, make sure that they understand those, see what the decision factors that they understand are. So data size, available resources, how complex the task is. You want to, it's the old effort versus time that you're looking for a PM to be able to navigate and have a strategy to win. Make sure that they're looking and able to talk about examples in their life, or maybe just like customer support and fine-tuning on a general language model so that they know that past interactions have gone certain ways and they have had outcomes. And with machine learning, for instance, you can figure out correlations to where you can interject here and keep the value around, and even maybe bump up how much their lifetime value is. There's certain things you can do and find that human eyes just aren't going to. And so you want to hear these things from the applicant. So what risks do you watch for? There's obviously bias, and you want to be fair with we heard some problems with Grok recently, and it's saying some pretty terrible things, and we don't want that to happen. And so you need to make sure that the guardrails are there. There's ethics. Anthropic just started a new campaign to have an ethics, like Geneva Convention, I think they called it. But anyway, the idea of having ethical bots that aren't going to take everybody's jobs are things that people have signed on to, and we need to think of. The data quality is going to matter a lot no matter where you are, but even more in like finance and healthcare and regulated industries. And so we are always going to need to know what the regulations are and make sure we stay not afoul of them and allow the humans in the loop to keep us compliant. So how would you measure success? This is always a big one for PMs, because measuring success is the iterative process. This is how you know what you're doing, where you're going, and what's working and what isn't. And so you want to use multiple metrics, so depending on your goal. So when we were building the software for the small businesses and their marketing department, it would be views and interactions, and then you would go deeper than that. North Stars, KPIs, things like that you're used to hearing are still important here, but you also want to get accuracy. And so you want to know how accurate your model is at predicting what you would want it to predict, so you can feed it in a whole bunch of prompts that these are what you expect, like here's the question, here's what you would like as examples. And then from there, you can have the LLM kind of learn what it is that you want. That's called a few shots method of prompt engineering. But anyway, so we have to also remember the privacy and transparency and all of those other things, and make sure that the AI PM candidate is hitting all of these and makes you feel comfortable that they understand these things. Okay, now let's run through some concepts from AI world. LLM, large language model. A lot of us are familiar with these. OpenAI has one, Anthropic has one, ChatGPT runs off OpenAI's, Claude runs off Anthropic's. And so it's basically a giant predictor. It takes a whole bunch of knowledge of text that it's crawled and got, and now I think it's even got images and things. But basically it takes all of this and is able to, through different mappings and mathematical concepts, able to actually predict the next word and reason to a degree. Prompt engineering, that's asking questions to these things. So when you go into ChatGPT or Claude or any of these, you first ask it a question. That's a prompt. And the way you structure that prompt can have a lot of impact on the results you get back. You can say, as a product manager, you need to write this product strategy instead of just give me a product strategy. There's also some details around ways to add things to the context, which we'll get to here in a minute. There's AI agents. They are just bots that you send out to do things, and there's even managers of these agents that can send them out to do tasks for, like, say, research. You can send one out to research the finances, one to research the cultural impact, one to research the environmental impact of a policy, say. And each agent is managed by another bot, and then the research report is given to you. Machine learning is a subset of AI, and that's really where we use math and linear algebra to try to find the correlation to different things. So it can be structured data or unstructured data, like images. So anyway, we can use these numbers basically to find which ones are close and therefore probably the same. I'll give you some examples here in a little bit. Fine tuning, that's taking a model and training it on things like your information, and so your company's details, stuff like that. RAG, retrieval augmented generation. There's also a CAG, which is a cache augmented generation. Either way, it's trying to give more context to the prompt that you're making to the AI. And so by doing that, you're able to kind of dope the prompt with information. So for the social media app I made, it would take the information about their persona that they're targeting, the business's description, what they offered, and all of that would help the AI create the social media post or the copy for their website. That was the end result. Embeddings are kind of how they remember AI, and as I said, it's math related. So these are really matrices that we're talking about with these and vectors, vector databases. And so the that's where these laid. And so basically it's just a way for the computer to, even unstructured data like pictures, be able to compare them with numbers. It's kind of deep, and there's another video we could have over those. So here's some examples. So with large language models, we're all pretty familiar with those at this point. I'm sure you've done prompting, but if you do a template and you do things over and over, AI is good at those repetitive tasks, and that's what we are trying to offload and make our lives better and quicker and make us more efficient. The agents, you can get a sales rep that loses a deal because the follow-ups just are too late and inconsistent. That AI agent won't be late and it won't be inconsistent, and it'll be able to, through things like RAG and other things, be able to inject value and hopefully win it back and give you more revenue. Finding out why subscription churn is high. Maybe it's a time of year, maybe there's another correlation, but machine learning's good at finding these correlations. They use statistical methods of finding things like random forest and nearest neighbor and many other statistical ways of finding what's close, and that can surface this example, or like a restaurant menu, which things should be paired together and when to sell the best. To fine tune, you have NDAs that are just you and they're unique to you, and you can fine tune them to flag risky clauses when you're reading through them, if that's what you do for a living. Like I said, with RAG, there's a bunch of, I use it all the time. It's just really injecting the information in the context. Embeddings, so here's some examples there and how they're vector databases. Basically, what we're trying to do is find an individual like myself or somebody else that is able to articulate, they understand the details, they understand the product management side, most importantly, but then on top of that, how to bring out the enhancements for the human, get buy-in, and be that hand-holding with the client, with the executive team, with everybody on the team, to make sure that nobody gets overwhelmed, because we're finding that people are starting to get burnt out, and that's probably because they don't have ownership. And by giving them the tools to become superpowered, they'll have more time on their hands to do whatever, be happier and less stressed. So that's what we're after. We want to find people that can understand this, but also understand the human impacts and be a great team member and team leader for your organization. Let me know if you have any questions, and until tomorrow, have a great day.